Hello friends, welcome to JavaEE Servlet's tutorial. In this video, we are going to learn HTTP session concept. In the next video, we will see demo about HTTP session. So let us say our Wildfly server is having an web application. Servlet examples. So the server can host other web application also. Let us consider our Wildfly server is hosting a servlet example. So this is the web application we are using in the past few videos. Also, let's say there are 4 servlet in this servlet examples. Then let us say there are 2 user, one from USA and another one is from India. So in the previous sub-series, we looked into servlet context object. In servlet context, we store multiple attributes. And we also saw all the servlet share the same servlet context. Now let us see this in user perspective. There are two users accessing the servlet context. One user is from USA and another user is from India. So first let us consider both the user goes through servlet 1 and accessing it. So if you see, they both access the same servlet context object. Even if user 2 goes through servlet 3, they still access the same servlet context object. But HTTP sessions are user specific. Say for example, if user 1 access here goes through servlet 1, then they may get one session, HTTP session. So even if user goes through a different servlet, they still land up into that specific session. Similarly, if user 2 goes through a session, they will land up in a second session. So it doesn't matter which servlet they go through. There will be a separate session for each user connection. So let's say this user opens a browser. Let's say the user opens a browser and they navigate to our web application. So there will be a session for that user. Similarly, if user 2 opens a new browser and if they access our web application, there will be a separate session for the user. So we know that there will be a separate HTTP session that will create it for a user. So these HTTP sessions are user specific. So when there are 4 users, then there will be 4 HTTP sessions. But even though it is user specific, when user request is processed by the servlets, let's say 1, 2, 3, all the servlet will access the same HTTP session object, or all the servlet shares the same HTTP session. But when it is a servlet context, it is not user specific and it is not a servlet specific also. So all the users, whatever servlet they use, they access the same object. But here HTTP sessions are user specific, but they are not specific to Servlet. All the Servlet which is serving a particular user access the same HTTP session. So just like our Servlet context, user can keep the objects in the HTTP session. So first, to get HTTP session, we can make a call to get session on the request object. So the get session will give you the HTTP session. Then in the HTTP session, in order to store the object, you can use set attribute, just like how we do in the Servlet context. The same way we can use set attribute. So you can store the object under a string name. So then likewise you can store these objects. After that you can retrieve those objects using the get attribute by supplying the str. So each objects are identified by the first parameter whatever you supply. So you can make a call to get attribute and pass the string to retrieve these objects whatever you want. So if it is str1, then you will get that particular object from the session. So as already shown, all the servlet have access to this HTTP session, but the session belongs to user1. So this means there will be a time lapse for this session. Let's say it depends on the web admin's configuration or the developer's configuration. If developer sets 5 minutes, then the HTTP session will be alive for 5 minutes. Let's say the user is alive here, they are performing some operation on the web, they are accessing the web application. There will be a request and response exchange. But here, from this point onwards, let's say the web browser is inactive or it is not interacting with the web application. So if 5 minutes is set as the timeout period, then the HTTP session will die. That means after this, if user is making the connection alive, then there will be a new HTTP session created for the same user one. But you can make a call to, so if you make a call to invalidate, that time also the session will get elapsed. So it will be useful. Let's say a user is performing a purchase operation, they are adding the product to the shopping cart. So whatever page they access, they may go to a different page and add an item to the cart, and finally that means they may go to different page, means the pages may access a either same servlet or different servlet, but they access the same HTTP session. So inside one of the object, it may be an array of object, there it will maintain the array of the user's shopping cart. That means the items placed in the shopping cart. So that will be an array, right? So after they check out, the order will be placed, and usually the web application make a call to invalidate. That means the HTTP session will get closed. So if we want to do a second round of purchase, even in an active session, there is no inactive period even in the active session. So if they provided a submit and web application called invalidate, the session will get closed and a new session starts here. All right. Now this is specific to particular user, and in the previous slide we saw how a HTTP session is maintained for each user, and we know when it will time out, when there is no inactive, and there is a timeout set in the web server. After that inactive period elapses, the HTTP session will get closed. But in terms of active connection, they may still have access to this HTTP session. Say the user is browsing through different pages, HTML pages or JSP or whatever pages offered by this application, and let's say each page access a different servlet. But since this is under the same session, let's say for user 1 is navigating through different web pages, and you can see different servlet is serving the web request, but for user 1 there will be one HTTP session. So this way, even though there is a multiple request from 4 different pages, when user is placing the purchasing item in the shopping cart, the shopping cart get maintains the selected items. So when there is a different user from different location of the geographic, and if they perform the same shopping operation, there will be a separate shopping cart maintained, because for user 1 there is a separate HTTP session and user 2 has a separate HTTP session, and shopping cart is maintained inside this HTTP session. So this is cart 1 for user 1, let's say this is cart of user 1 and this is a shopping cart of user 2. So to understand this HTTP session, we are going to develop an demo. So there will be a HTML. So this gift.html will provide a group of radio buttons, and user can pick their gift, then they can submit. Once they submit, the call is served by a servlet. So giftbox servlet. So giftbox servlet will create a HTTP session and stores whatever is user selected. So if their gift is ABC, this will get stored. So here itself we will provide one web link, show my gift. So when once user submits, the submitted information is stored inside the HTTP session. Then using the show gift, if we access it through a different servlet, we will create one more servlet, show gift. So even though this is a second request, since we stored the user's selection inside the HTTP session, it will be available for the second request. So this will be the request 1. We know that the HTTP connection between server and client. So the request scope will get destroyed when server responds back. So when a new request goes, this is server, right? The Wildfly server or any other server, it is Tomcat or whatever it is. So when second request comes, it doesn't know anything about the previous request. So we don't have a way to get what was selected by the user in the previous request using the request object. So the request is gone. But HTTP session is maintained between the request. So that's why we call it as a session. So here user established a session. That means user opened a browser, then they navigated to this giftpick.html. They picked a gift, then they submitted. This is first request 1. It goes to server. Server will store the selected gift in a HTTP session and responds back. Then on the same session in the browser window, whatever is responded, that will be rendered here in the browser. So using show gift link, they navigate through a different servlet, show gift servlet, and this will have the second request object. We know that when servlet is serving, it receives a request and response, right? So this is the request one for servlet gift box, but this is a request for the show gift servlet, and this request object is different from previous one. So to know, so here as part of the request, user may be sending that my selection of gift is ABC, so that gets stored, but request 2 doesn't have that information. But since it got stored in a HTTP session and user is doing the second request on the same session, so we are saying it's a session 2, let's consider session 1. On the same session, request 2 goes and the servlet will access the HTTP session. So in the previous picture we saw that whatever servlet the user won on a particular session access, all the servlets share the same HTTP session. So we can read this information. Ultimately here we will use the setter version of the attribute, set attribute. Here we will use the get attribute. Alright. So this is the example we are going to create, and if I want to summarize, there is a HTML giftpick.html. When user submits, it goes to gift box, or gift pick servlet. So we will name it when we are demoing it. Then there is one more stuff we need to create, show gift servlet. So totally 3 we will create. One is the HTML file, next one servlet, this will perform the set operation, and then is one more servlet, this will perform the get operation. That's all here in this video. Thank you for watching. Bye.